The fire of betrayal. The chamber of the Imperial Council was carved from obsidian and lit by fire. Hundreds of alien dignitaries gathered in amphitheater rows, their jeweled robes shimmering under the torchlight. At the center stood a single figure, tall, gray-haired, calm despite the weight of billions on his shoulders. Dr. Elias Trent, Earth's ambassador, had spent his life negotiating peace among worlds that consider humanity little more than an upstart species. He had hoped this day would mark a turning point. Honored counselors, Trent began, voice firm but respectful. Earth seeks only coexistence. Our colonies expand not out of conquest, but survival. We bring trade, culture, and innovation. Surely, there is room in the stars for cooperation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A winged THRYN delegate hissed. A scaled Viralian smirked, tapping claws against the stone bench. And upon the throne at the far end sat Lord High Regent Malkar, mouth curved into a cruel smile. "You speak as though your kind belongs among us," Malkar sneered. "But humanity is nothing more than vermin scurrying into corners we have not yet filled." The council laughed, a hollow chorus that echoed through the dome. Trent did not flinch. He raised his chin, voice steady. "If survival is verminous, then so be it. But history will judge not who claimed dominion, but who showed mercy." The laughter stopped. Silence fell, dangerous and heavy. Malkar leaned forward. "Mercy," his voice dripped venom. "You presume to lecture the Empire on mercy?" He gestured, and armored guards seized Trent. The ambassador struggled, but their grips were iron. Whispers of confusion spread among the delegates. No one had expected this. Even among the Empire's enemies, protocol was sacred. Malkar stood. "Let this be the lesson humanity takes back to its pitiful blue world. They beg for mercy. We answer with judgment." A pyre was lit at the chamber's heart, flames roaring high. The guards dragged Trent toward it, and realization dawned across the assembly. Executions were rare, a ritual reserved for traitors. Trent's eyes widened, but he did not beg. He turned his gaze skyward, as though seeing Earth one last time. "Humanity will not forget," he whispered. The flames consumed him. Billions watched across the galaxy as the broadcast spread. On Earth, in crowded cities and rural homes, people froze before their screens. Mothers clutched children tighter. Soldiers in training grounds clenched their fists. Even the most cautious politicians stood in stunned silence. When Trent screamed, humanity screamed with him. When his body fell to ash, something harder than grief settled across the human soul. 3 days later, the United Defense Council convened in Geneva. The world's leaders, once fractious and mistrustful, now faced one another with grim resolve. President Elena Serrano stood at the head of the chamber, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "The Empire believes us weak," she said. Her voice carried the weight of 10 billion hearts. "They believe that fire will cow us. But fire has never cowed humanity. Fire forged us." She paused, gaze sweeping across admirals, generals, and ministers. "No more petitions. No more compromises. They murdered our diplomat before the eyes of the galaxy. If we do not respond, we invite extinction." The hall thundered with agreement. Even those who had long argued for restraint, who had believed humanity could survive as a minor vassal, now saw the truth. There was no place for Earth in the Empire's order except as ash. Admiral Kian Ramani, head of the fledgling United Defense Fleet, stood. His uniform was crisp, but his hands trembled with fury. "Our ships are few, our fleets untested. But we have prepared for this day. Let us show them what humanity does when cornered." President Serrano raised her hand. "Then it is decided. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity retaliates." Across Earth, the response was immediate. Shipyards on Luna thundered with new construction. Factories in New Mumbai converted from automobiles to weapons of war. Young men and women lined recruitment halls, determined to fight for Trent, for Earth, for survival. On the streets, murals of Elias Trent bloomed overnight. His calm face, his final words, "Humanity will not forget," became a rallying cry. And in the silence of orbit, the first squadrons of UDF ships deployed, their black hulls gleaming against the stars. The Galactic Empire had thrown fire at humanity. But humanity had learned long ago, fire burns both ways. The gathering storm. The shipyards of Luna never slept. Where once they had constructed transport barges and exploratory craft, now steel hulls rose like titans from scaffolding, each destined to be a warship of the United Defense Fleet. The echo of rivets, the glow of plasma welders, and the thunder of engines filled the void. In the command deck overlooking the yards, Admiral Kian Ramani surveyed the chaos with pride. Holographic displays showed completion rates of frigates, cruisers, and experimental carriers. Humanity had always been underestimated in interstellar engineering, but what the Empire didn't know was that Earth scientists have been quietly developing hybrid AI systems for decades. Where Imperial warships relied on sheer size and intimidation, human ships were lean, fast, and brutally efficient. "They think us primitive," Ramani muttered, hands clasped behind his back. "Let's show them what primitives do when threatened with extinction." Captain Mira Holt stood on the bridge of the destroyer Iron Resolve. At 34, she was young for a command officer, but war had little patience for age. Her ship, sleek and sharp like a blade, was one of the first completed under the war program. Her orders were clear: test the enemy, strike and vanish, learn their weaknesses. The crew moved with silent precision. Engineers triple-checked the railgun capacitors. Pilots calibrated drone swarms. The ship hummed with restrained violence. Mira addressed her crew. "Listen well. We're not here to win battles yet. We're here to learn how the Empire bleeds." She leaned forward, eyes hard. "And believe me, it will bleed." Their first target lay on the fringes of Viralian territory, an Imperial supply depot orbiting a barren rock. It should have been routine for the Empire, lightly defended, unworthy of true warships. That arrogance made it the perfect place to strike. The Iron Resolve slipped from the dark, cloaked by electronic countermeasures. Myra's voice cut through the tension. "Drones, launch. Target their comm relays first. No witnesses." Hundreds of needle-shaped drones streaked forward, invisible on Imperial sensors until too late. They tore through satellite arrays, silencing the station's cries for help. Railguns thundered next, slugs moving at fractions of light speed. The depot blossomed into fire and twisted metal. Within minutes, it was over. Mira gave a sharp nod. "Signal all units. Withdraw. Leave nothing but wreckage." The Iron Resolve disappeared into the void as quickly as it had come. Across the galaxy, the Empire barely noticed. Reports of piratical activity trickled into regional governors. Admirals dismissed the attacks as minor nuisances. After all, what threat could one species pose to an empire spanning thousands of systems? But the raids did not stop. Within weeks, half a dozen depots were destroyed. Patrol fleets reported missing. Mining worlds found their infrastructure crippled. And each time, the attackers vanished before reinforcements arrived. Whispers spread among other species. On neutral trade hubs, alien merchants murmured of Earth's retaliation. The Katheri Confederation, long resentful of imperial tariffs, quietly funneled intelligence to humanity. A few rebel movements sent encrypted messages of solidarity. The galaxy was watching. Back on Earth, President Serrano addressed a gathering of soldiers in New Geneva. The plaza overflowed with recruits, many barely more than youths. They stood in rows, armor freshly issued, rifles gleaming in the morning sun. Serrano's voice rang out, broadcast across every colony and ship. "The Empire burned our Diplomat alive to show us fear," she said. "But fear is not what they awakened. They awakened unity. They awakened fire." She raised her hand, pointing skyward. "From this day forward, we do not fight alone as Americans, Chinese, Africans, Europeans, or Martians. We fight as humanity. One people, one will, one war." The soldiers roared back, a single voice echoing into the skies. Meanwhile, in the gilded halls of the imperial capital, Regent Malkar sneered at the reports of sabotage. Children throwing stones at giants, he scoffed to his advisors. Let them have their tantrum. Soon, they will learn what it means to defy the Empire. But one advisor, a serpent-eyed strategist, frowned. My lord, perhaps we should not underestimate them. The humans fight with a desperation I have rarely seen. Malkar waved a jeweled hand dismissively. Desperation is the final act of the weak. We will crush them when it amuses us. He did not see what the galaxy was beginning to understand. Humanity was not desperate. Humanity was preparing. In orbit around Titan, the Iron Resolve joined a growing flotilla of UDF ships. Captain Mira Holt watched as vessels aligned, their black hulls gleaming with Earth's new emblem, a burning torch set against a starfield. Her communications officer turned. Message from Admiral Romani, ma'am. Orders are clear. We're to escalate. Hit harder. Push deeper. Myra's lips curved into a thin smile. Good. The Empire thinks we're an ember. Let's show them we're a wildfire. The crew cheered, and the engines roared to life. The storm was gathering. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. Clash of Titans. The red dust of Mars hung suspended in the thin atmosphere, illuminated by the glow of orbital shipyards and defensive satellites. Humanity had turned the planet into a fortress. Massive railgun batteries lay buried beneath the regolith, their barrels camouflaged and aimed skyward. Swarms of drones patrolled the void, silent guardians awaiting the enemy. And the enemy was coming. From the outer rim, Imperial scouts had already reported Earth's raids as escalating piracy. Now, the Empire had decided to end the nuisance. A fleet of 300 warships, banners of the Regent flying proud, surged towards Seoul like a tidal wave. Admiral Romani stood on the command deck of the UDF flagship Dauntless. His eyes traced the holographic projection of the incoming fleet. Compared to the Empire's massive cruisers and battleships, humanity's 60-ship defense force looked pitiful. Yet Romani's expression was calm, carved from iron. They think numbers will win this fight, he said. They've forgotten that we've studied every weakness they've shown us. And we've prepared. Captain Mira Holt paced the bridge of the Iron Resolve, now assigned to the forward defense line. Her crew buzzed with nervous energy. She addressed them with steady conviction. They burned Trent because they thought we'd break. But you've seen what humanity is capable of. Today, the Empire learns the cost of arrogance. The destroyer's lights dimmed to combat red. Every crew member strapped in. Every system hummed at full power. The battle began with the shadow of giants. Imperial warships entered Mars orbit, weapons bristling, shields shimmering. Their commander broadcast on all channels, his voice dripping with disdain. Humans, you're children playing at war. Surrender, and perhaps the Regent will grant you the mercy of slavery. Romani answered with a single word. Fire. The surface of Mars erupted. Hidden railguns spat slugs the size of buses, accelerating them to impossible speeds. The first salvo tore through Imperial shields, punching holes in battleships like paper. Entire decks vented into the void, and one cruiser split in half, tumbling into the atmosphere below. Before the Empire could regroup, swarms of autonomous drones streaked forward from Martian hangars, each carrying fusion-tipped warheads. They darted through flak fire, kamikaze strikes crippling engines and weapon banks. From a fleet, human ships lunged with surgical precision. The Iron Resolve dove beneath a destroyer, unleashing railgun fire that gutted its belly. Myra's crew cheered as the wreckage blossomed into flame. Target the stragglers, Mira commanded. Don't waste shots on their heaviest shields. Bleed them, piece by piece. The Empire responded with fury. Their capital ships unleashed plasma lances that carved through drones and human frigates alike. 2 UDF ships vanished in blinding explosions, their names etched into the void. But humanity did not scatter. They adapted. Admiral Romani shifted formations, sacrificing smaller corvettes to bait Imperial fire, while heavier cruisers flanked wide. Humanity fought like wolves, not in rigid lines, but in coordinated packs, each blow designed to exploit an opening. In one sector, a squadron of human ships lured an Imperial battleship into Mars' gravity well. At the critical moment, buried charges detonated beneath the Martian surface, creating shockwaves that disrupted its orbit. The behemoth spiraled downward, burning across the skies of Mars like a second sun. The soldiers watching from the surface erupted into wild cheers. For the first time in living memory, the Empire bled on a battlefield. Hours stretched into a storm of fire and metal. By the battle's end, space around Mars glittered with wreckage. Of the Empire's 300 ships, less than half limped away, broken and scarred. Humanity had lost 15, but the victory was undeniable. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Romani exhaled slowly. "Signal to Earth," he said. "The invincible Empire has been repelled." A stunned silence filled the command deck, then shouts, tears, and laughter. Against impossible odds, humanity had stood and endured. News spread faster than light. Across neutral worlds, astonished crowds replayed the footage. Imperial warships torn apart by species barely admitted to galactic councils. On oppressed colonies, whispers grew into defiant songs. If humans could defy the Empire, perhaps others could too. In the Imperial capital, Regent Malkar watched the battle's aftermath in silence, jaw clenched. His advisors shifted nervously. "My lord," one began cautiously, "perhaps we should reconsider the scale of—" "Silence," Malkar roared, smashing a goblet against the floor. "They are vermin who bit the hand of a god. Ready the legions. I want soul burned to ash." His fury echoed across the marble chamber. But outside the palace, doubt spread. The Empire had not been defeated in open battle for centuries. And now, one small world had accomplished the unthinkable. On Mars, Captain Mira Holt floated in her chair, exhausted but unbroken. Around her, the crew of the Iron Resolve celebrated. She raised her glass of recycled water, her voice hoarse but proud. "Today we prove the Empire is not invincible. Tomorrow, we take the fight to them." The bridge erupted in cheers. For the first time, hope shone brighter than fear. Fire for fire. The stars above Viralis Prime burned with the light of war. Once considered the jewel of the Galactic Empire, the planet shimmered with towering spires, glittering cities, and the arrogance of power. Now it trembled under siege. Human warships surrounded it in disciplined formations, their black hulls marked with Earth's new emblem, a torch blazing in the night. The United Defense Fleet had come not to harass, not to raid, but to end the war. Admiral Kian Romani stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, eyes fixed on the world below. He had seen the recordings of Elias Trent's execution more times than he could count, but it was the memory of his crew's sacrifices, of names lost at Mars and in countless raids, that steeled his resolve. "This is it," Romani said to his officers. "Operation Vengeance begins. No half measures. No retreat. Humanity will burn the memory of this day into the galaxy." On the ground, UDF Marines poured into the capital city of Trelshera. Streets once paved in gold ran red with fire as human soldiers fought the Empire's legions in brutal, house-to-house combat. Armored walkers clashed with human tanks. Drones swarmed through avenues, and every corner became a battlefield. Among them strode Captain Mira Holt, leading her platoon through the ruins. Her once pristine armor was scorched, her voice hoarse from shouting commands. But her spirit was unyielding. "They thought we'd kneel," she growled into her comms. "But this is what defiance looks like. Push them back." Her troops surged forward, rifles cracking, grenades shattering Imperial barricades. For every street they lost, they took two more. The humans were outnumbered, but they fought with something the Empire's soldiers could not comprehend: fury born of betrayal. In orbit, the final act began. The Emperor himself, abandoning his gilded throne, had assembled the last of his grand fleet to defend the capital. 500 Imperial warships, larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had yet faced, warped into system. On the Dauntless, alarms flared. Officers stared at the display in grim silence. Outnumbered 5-1, Humanity stood at the edge of annihilation. Romani straightened, voice firm. We've been underestimated since the beginning. Let them come. Every man and woman here knows what's at stake. We hold the line. The fleet roared its engines to life. The battle that followed would be remembered for millennia. Imperial dreadnoughts unleashed barges of plasma fire that lit the void like a second sun. Human ships darted between the beams, railguns blazing, missiles streaking. Drones flung themselves in suicide runs, tearing apart engines and shields. Entire squadrons vanished in fire, but others pressed forward, relentless. The iron resolve, scarred from countless raids, spearheaded a flank assault. Mira Holt, pulled from the ground to command her ship once more, guided her crew with razor focus. Target their command carriers, she ordered. Cut off the head, and the body will thrash blind. Her destroyer tore through enemy formations, crippled but unbowed. When her shields collapsed, she rammed a missile corvette point-blank, sacrificing half her ship systems to cripple the Imperial flank. Above, Romani coordinated with precision, turning chaos into strategy. Human ships moved like packs of wolves, circling, striking, retreating, striking again. For every loss, the Empire paid triple. And then, the impossible happened. The Imperial flagship, the Viralis Ascendant, found itself surrounded. Engines sputtered under drone swarms. Shields collapsed under railgun fire. The Emperor's proud vessel began to fall. On the bridge, the Emperor stood in silence as alarm screamed. His face twisted in disbelief. These primitives, he spat. They cannot defeat me. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity had not only survived, it had outthought, outmaneuvered, and outlasted the mightiest empire in history. When the Viralis Ascendant finally exploded in a ball of white fire, the entire battlefield froze. For the first time in centuries, the Empire fought leaderless. Moments later, Romani's voice thundered across the comms. Humanity stand victorious. The Emperor is no more. The galaxy is free to rise. In the aftermath, the Regent's palace lay in ruins. The few remaining counselors surrendered, their arrogance turned to ash. The Emperor's surviving heirs were dragged before tribunal, and in bitter irony, their sentence mirrored Trent's, death by fire, broadcast to the galaxy. But humanity did not revel in cruelty. They offered alliances to those who had long suffered beneath imperial boots. Where the Empire had ruled by fear, Earth promised partnership. On Earth, murals of Elias Trent were joined by new ones, of soldiers who had fallen, of captains who had sacrificed, of civilians who had endured. Humanity had lost much, but in loss they had found unity. On a quiet night, aboard the Dauntless, Romani stood with Mira Holt, gazing at the stars. They thought fire would break us, Holt said softly. Romani nodded. Instead, it forged us. And now the galaxy knows what we are. Above them, the constellations glittered, no longer symbols of unreachable empires, but of a future humanity had carved in blood and fire.